In this part 2 of the 3-part series on Stepan, we're going to take a look at the key issues facing the company today and in the recent past, with, of course, a particular focus on surfactants. The Pasadena alkoxylation project is a $265 million capital expenditure aimed at installing 75,000 tons per year capacity for alkoxylation. It was originally scheduled to start up in the third quarter of 24. It's starting up around now, gives the company flexible capabilities. It's the third alkoxylation facility now, in addition to Winder, Georgia and Millsdale, Illinois. And they're right there in the ethylene oxide corridor. It's not on a pipeline, but it is very much in the neighborhood of multiple ethylene oxide producers, unlike the other two existing alkoxylation facilities. 1,4-dioxane, the company has spent time, energy, and money, of course, in installing dioxane removal capabilities at their sulfonation sites in North America in order to meet the New York State regulation, which we've talked an awful lot about, and the California state regulations covering dioxane content in the finished consumer product. So that work is done at Stepan. They now claim to have the largest capacity in North America for the production of low dioxane sulfates. I've no reason to disbelieve that. It's difficult to tease out exactly how much was spent on that series of projects at those different sulfonation sites, but reading between the lines, I'm thinking it's between 10, maybe 15, 10 to 15, no more than $20 million across all those sites to bring that dioxane capability into line. Another thing that's mentioned quite a bit in the company's filings in the risk section of the 10Ks is environmental scrutiny on ethylene oxide. And this has nothing to do with dioxane now. This is the use and handling of ethylene oxide, which, as we mentioned, it does at 3 sites now with Pasadena, addition of Pasadena, 3 sites now in North America. And so they mention actions by the EPA, and I'm reading here also a Georgia law adopted in 2020 requiring reporting of ethylene oxide spills, and some restrictive legislation proposed in Illinois, among other places. And so this is explicitly called out in the Stepan annual reports. By the way, in contrast to other ethylene oxide producers and handlers in the chemical industry, which, as far as I can see, don't specifically call this out in their 10K filings. Another big issue facing the company, as it has faced the surfactant industry as a whole, is volume. Volume was down significantly in 2023. Company-wide volume down 11% in 23, and they've had a pretty difficult time recovering from that throughout 2024, and in fact it's reflected in the company's EBITDA numbers. We'll go into finances in the third video of the series, but EBITDA has been as high as $301.5 million in 2022. That dropped to $180 million in 23. These are adjusted EBITDA numbers, and $187 million, so a very slight recovery there in 2024. And so it's been a pretty tough road to recovery from that slump, which was really a combination of things, including destocking in the industry in 2023. So part of the solution to that, in fact, we'll cover in the next point, but this has been a focus of a lot of the company's strategic and tactical moves right now and in the recent year. So what we've seen the company do in response to a very challenging 2023 is two things, really. One is, in their words, more focus on tier 2 and tier 3 customers. And the second thing is, of course, expense control, cost out types of programs. So let's look at the first one first. Stepan, I think, is pretty well known for a very strong alignment and relationship with the big tier 1 customers, particularly in the surfactant area. That's the one certainly I'm most familiar with. But here now they're talking about an increased focus, a renewed focus on tier 2 and tier 3 customers. And I'd also add to that, I think, and they highlight this, a renewed focus or an additional focus on surfactant markets outside of the so-called commodity cleaning markets. So outside of laundry and household cleaning, a focus on things like agriculture, oil field, construction, and what they call specialty personal care, right? And so they're looking to those areas as well as areas of growth rather than the more traditional sort of big commodity cleaning markets in laundry and other household cleaning applications. It says here, and I've no reason again to disbelieve them, that in the surfactant area alone in 2024, the company added 1,760 new customers. I think that's pretty good. I think that's a lot. So kudos there, and you know, and again, I'm assuming that most of them or all of them are in that so-called tier 2 and tier 3. I would also add in there distributors. I think that you know, they have a good position with the distributors anyway, and they call out in one of the filings, I forget which one now, it says somewhere in here that part of a recovery that they saw in volume in the fourth quarter of 23. I mean, 23 was a bad volume year, but the fourth quarter things started to recover, and a significant factor in that recovery was sales to distributors. Another thing I'll call out here, and this could be linked, is that they highlight in one of the 2022 filings that in fact they ended up during 22 losing business to a customer that invested in their own dioxane reduction. So one of those big customers that has the scale to be able to do that. And I probably infer from that, obviously it was a driver for getting their dioxane systems in place, dioxane removal in place, but also I think it was probably a driver, again, to kind of refocus on those tier 2 and tier 3 customers. Another thing they point out is moving away from consumer cleaning, or less of an emphasis. I wouldn't say moving away from it, but less, relatively speaking, an emphasis, more of an emphasis on functional products, building products, away from ingredients, except personal care specialties, where they highlight, interestingly, AOS, alpha olefin sulfonates, among other things, and more broadly, their sulfate-free offerings. So that's kind of the market mix steps that they're taking, which I think are pretty prudent, given their already strong position in tier 1. And then, of course, expense control and cost savings. There were some significant restructuring moves in, I believe, mostly in 2023. In fact, they took an unusual restructuring charge during that year. And so there have been headcount reductions, productivity improvements, you know, a plan to deliver $50 million in pre-tax cost savings in 2024. And these are all, I think, what one would expect given you know, the tough 2023 and struggle to recover in 2024 that they've had, along with investments in obviously the big new ethoxylation capacity, which I expect will deliver solid earnings going forward, and in other areas, including dioxane reduction. So a lot going on with Stepan in the last couple of years, and a lot, I think, to look forward to in the coming year. And I would say that, you know, the issues that Stepan faces are the issues that the surfactant industry faces. So what we will do in the next episode, and I'm taking a bit of a risk here, is we're going to go deep into the Stepan financials for a number of years, take a look at the performance of the different segments, particularly surfactants, and try to infer from that some of the drivers behind the Stepan stock price. That's all coming up in the third video in this 3-video series. So I hope this brief insight has been useful and informative for you. I thank you as always again for listening. Please do let me know if there are questions we can answer in these videos going forward. Thanks again for listening.